and YouTube. Make it plain, if you would, please, ma'am, please, sir. Um, so I want to, as we get ready to bring on Angelo, I kind of want to start this way. Sean Hannity was on. He's been on Fox, of course, but he was on just the other day talking about destroying evidence. Let's take a listen. Brittany, can you bring me up, please? This is courtesy of Media Matters and MSNBC.
Where's the report on why the FBI looked the other way as Hillary Clinton literally destroyed evidence as she deleted 33,000 subpoenaed emails, acid washed her hard drive with bleach bit, and had an aide break up her devices with a hammer?
So then he said that that's exactly what people should do if they're asked.
And that's Ali Veshi describing that. We're going to get our friend Angelo Carasone's take on this as he joins us now. Angelo Carusone, of course, president of Media Matters. Angelo, good morning, man. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Just fine, just fine. First of all, did I miss something? Did Hillary acid wash and break up her phone in pieces before she gave it to? Did I miss that?
No,
I didn't know that.
no. I mean, there was physical destruction of some devices at the State Department, which is required by law. Basically, he took a story, and this has been a thing that Hannity repeats. I would probably say on average of 3 times a day.
Right.
And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, he uses acid wash, breaking up with hammers, 3 times a day at least. And what they're really doing is taking one story about the State Department officials destroying their devices, which is required by their own internal regulations. You basically delete your phone, reset it, and you have to actually physically destroy it. And the idea is that, you can't extract any communications from it. That's the whole point why that's the regulation. But there was nothing that evidence after it was potential evidence after a hold notice was put in place or anything like that any physical devices were destroyed. There was nothing even close to that.
But he's also been, not only have I noticed him saying acid wash, break it up in little pieces 3 times a day.
Yeah.
He's also been, and he pretends to be joking, saying that that's what the Trump administration is do. He'll say, and then he'll say, "Oh, but I'm just joking, folks.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't take it seriously."
That's right.
But it's just the power of suggestion. He keeps saying it over and over and over again. And the headline at Media Matters, in fact, is several Mimi Rocha, who I've actually been on the air with at MSNBC, is saying that it is incredibly reckless to suggest destroying evidence that way.
Yeah, and I think that the 2 things that give me, because of course Hannity almost dedicated his entire show last night to pointing out how everyone's taking him out of context and how he's being treated unfairly. But the 2 things that I sort of point out to reinforce the interpretation last night of what he said is, one is it's in line with what you just said too. It's beyond just the suggestion. He says he doesn't just throw it out there. He said last night when he said this, he said, if I were advising all of these people, right? So he even couches what is supposed to be this extremely hilarious joke in the context of Sean Hannity advice to these individuals. That's one. 2 is that Preet Bharara tweeted out that he prosecuted a lot of criminals in his career, and you would be surprised at the number of them that claim that they were joking after they were caught.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fair. I mean, that's basically the point is that he floats this idea out there repeatedly. It's almost like a warning, right? And I think he has every intention to stand by what he said, which was that, he probably thinks people should be destroying their evidence because, keep in mind, this is somebody that has repeatedly argued in every other context that Mueller should be put in jail, right? That there's probably that Hillary Clinton and that James Comey should also be put in jail. I mean, his whole point is that this entire investigation is illegitimate. So I really don't think it's a stretch, and I actually think he's out there running interference and doing defense for Trump like he always does.
Well, I just want to reiterate Matt Gertz's piece of a couple of weeks ago, and we touched on this before. He reviewed 487 of Sean Hannity's segments about the first year of Robert Mueller's investigation. And he has spent the last year, Matt Gertz at MediaMatters.org writes, Hannity has spent the last year laying the groundwork for an authoritarian response to the Russia probe. He is so repetitive. So I'm transparent. When I repeat things on radio, I am literally promoting something. That's why you do it. So we have a colleague. You have to be elected to the Radio Hall of Fame. So when Joe Madison, that colleague, was here, and I'll do it today, vote for Joe Madison, text 600 to 96000. Or if there's an event, go to MediaMatters.org to find out more. I'll repeat MediaMatters.org several times in this segment because I'm promoting the website. That makes sense. But what Sean does, I mean, we have to be clear about it. It's also transparent. He is repeating propaganda over and over and over again for the same reason I would say Media Matters. Now, I'm saying go to MediaMatters.org. I want you to go to Media Matters. He, in the same way, says, and I'm telling you to go there generally to read and be informed. But he's saying, destroy evidence. I'm just kidding. Destroy evidence. I'm just kidding. Destroy evidence. I'm just kidding. Now, it's the same effect. I say MediaMatters.org. I don't say as much as he says destroy evidence. I'm just kidding. But I'm saying that because my power suggestion is I'm honest, transparent. Y'all can subpoena me. I want you to go to Media Matters. I'll go before the grand jury and say that. And I think I'll be okay. But him saying destroy evidence, I'm just kidding. Destroy evidence, I'm just kidding. It's the same thing, but you see the difference between me saying go to Media Matters and somebody else saying destroy evidence, or saying Mueller should go to jail, Mueller should go to jail, Mueller should go to jail. You know what I'm saying? That's you and I talked about this before too, Angelo. I've been in radio more than half of my life. The power of suggestion. Everybody under the sound of our voices has listened to the radio, heard a song they didn't like, but the radio station keeps playing it. And then what happens, Angelo? You keep hearing that song. Sooner or later, you start singing it.
Yep. It's totally right. It's spot on.
And that's what they're doing. I caught a clip. I caught a clip of him last night, and he had a guest on doing that, just repeat. They literally were not even. They didn't even have different sentences. Everybody was literally repeat. I watched for 5 minutes. I couldn't take it. This is a criminal investigation. This is a criminal. He said this is a criminal investigation. The guest said, I don't even know her name. This is a criminal investigation. He said this is a criminal investigation. This is a criminal investigation. I mean, they just went back and forth.
Incredible.
And so that's what, and it has to be having an effect on that audience, man. I mean, that audience, that's why people are so clouded. I had a guy call me this morning and tell me nobody ever wanted me to prove to him that anybody ever called Michelle Obama a monkey, an ape, or a gorilla. He didn't believe it.
I mean, it has definitely had an effect on the audience, and I can just give one. It's to some extent an anecdote, but obviously we've done a few campaigns against some of these right-wing figures like Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh, and they've all complained about Media Matters and to some extent me. We have never had the volume of threats lobbed at us and me individually. Whether it was Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh, nothing even close. I mean, if you take all the years of campaigning between Beck and Limbaugh and combine them, and all the attacks, nothing. It was a drop in the bucket compared to what happened when Hannity started to come at us directly. And so when I think about the effect on the audience, to me that is an indicator, which is why are we getting not just so many calls, but why are we getting so many explicit threats? Well, part of it is that they feel justified. Right? That's because their worldview is hopped up to your point on this repetitive narrative about everybody else just being either completely corrupt or criminal. And it's the one or two things that he just says over and over and over again that actually, I think, to some extent justify people to have these really over the top reactions, right? Which is why, you've seen a lot of backlash against companies before. But a backlash against companies where thousands of people are smashing their own coffee pots, because Sean Hannity suggested, just like he did here, right? He didn't go out and tweet, everyone go ahead and break your coffee pots. What he said is, wow, he retweeted, so these videos are hilarious. Keep them coming. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that is, to me, those are indicators of the effect on his audience, which is, that they're not just hopped up on this and sort of worked up, but that they actually feel to a large extent justified in their behavior.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it becomes Manchurian.
Mm-hmm.
And I suggest people watch the Manchurian Candidate if you haven't. Watch the original one with Sinatra too, so you can kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. In the meantime, you and I have talked about this, how ad sales have gone down for Hannity and Laura Ingraham. But now there's a new headline at Media Matters. Fox News reportedly having difficulty selling ads for Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham shows. The pro-Trump thing isn't working. Fox News business model is not sustainable. Now, you had said this before. They were willing to take a hit to keep this going. Are they now rethinking that? Is that a problem?
Well, it's becoming a problem internally. So the report is that basically a number of Fox executives, so Gabe Sherman reported this, have been making hay internally because, it's their ad season right now, and they just can't sell the ads. Laura Ingraham's show used to have 38 commercials. She now has 15 commercial breaks. Sean Hannity's programming his ad sales were down 17% in the fall. They've continued to decline. I mean, almost both of their advertising bases has completely evaporated. And so what you have now is basically internal Fox executives running for the first time in a real meaningful way feedback to the other Fox staff. And so that's what Gabe Sherman was reporting about, which is that you have a bunch of Fox executives not just pointing out that they can't sell the ads, but attributing it directly to the content, in particular on Ingraham and Hannity's show. And what they're seeing from the advertiser community is basically that the quality, the content of the programming is not just so volatile, but that it's also viewed, at least in the business community, as being an extension of the White House's. Right? So that's why you don't see other odious Fox News programming on that list, because they see Tucker Carlson as kind of gross too, but they just see that as like conventional grossness. They don't see it as partisan, and that's the kind of stuff that really makes companies, bristle. It's either really, really extreme stuff, or for the most part, it's partisan politics. What they don't want to be viewed as is supporting something that is an explicit political or partisan operation.
Yeah.
And so the critique against Hannity and Ingraham actually it makes them much more skittish because they think that they're acting in a partisan political way, and they just don't want to be seen as giving basically an in-kind contribution to Trump. So that's really the latest development there, is that we've finally gotten that internal friction point, and what they'll start to do is either pressure Hannity and Ingraham to dial it back. And if they don't dial it back, then you'll start to see more of these stories come out as everybody starts to cover their own behinds, right? Which is that, well, it's not that I can't sell ads. I just can't sell ads because your programming is untellable.
Right. Because then that's my job. I got to come to work too and be held accountable for selling ads as an ad salesperson.
Right.
So you got mutiny on the ship.
That's right.
This is really something. So they may collapse under their own, by their own hand.
That's right, and this is exactly what we were talking about last time. It's the same thing. They make a decision, right, to ride it out. They'll absorb the losses, but then you start to see increasing friction internally. So you start to see increasing friction internally, and that's where you get these decision points, right? And so right now you're getting friction on two fronts. You're getting the substance side, which is you see this consistent contrast between Shep Smith and Sean Hannity. It's almost like Shep Smith wakes up in the morning and says, what is something ridiculous that Hannity said last night that I need to make sure I debunk explicitly when I get on air today? Because of how consistently he is just explicitly rejecting the things that Hannity is saying. And on the other hand, you have this problem with the ad sales people, and that the same thing played out with Glenn Beck, which was the same sequence. And it culminates in eventually they just can't ride it out anymore. And when they fired Glenn Beck, I mean, in their actual statement pointed out that, when you don't have ads, you don't have a show. I mean, that was Fox News' response to Glenn Beck.
Right.
When you don't have ads, you don't have a show. And to me, that I think that still stands. It's just a question of how long they can endure it. But it's starting.
So now, you mentioned Shep Smith. It helped me understand, what the business model is with that. How is it that they allow Hannity to act fool at night, and then on this very same network have Shep Smith on 180 degrees the next morning? I mean, what's the media or business strategy or rating strategy around that?
Interesting. So, Shep. One thing to keep in mind about Shep Smith is that he's one of the few Fox personalities, outside of Chris Wallace, that has a broadcast footprint. So, Fox stations have affiliates, in almost every city, and so there are a lot of stations out there that license the Fox name so that they can have the Fox, imprimatur. Fox News itself owns and operates a few local stations.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, when breaking news happens, you need an anchor, a national anchor. NBC, CBS, they have evening broadcasts because they are broadcast networks. There is no anchor for Fox, right? They don't have a national broadcast. And so Shep Smith is that guy. So when there is breaking news and they need a national anchor to pipe out to their affiliates, that's Shep Smith. So one, the role that Shep Smith plays there is kind of it's a little weird in the sense that he is their guy when it comes to all breaking news at the national level. And he's always been that guy. It's one of the dynamics that he had with Roger Ailes. He plays really well in all of those markets that the affiliates are in. He's a relatively trusted brand, right? And it's something because they have to sell that to the affiliates. So it has to be something that has broad national palatability, right? You couldn't have, even if they love him, you couldn't have Bill O'Reilly doing a job like that because the affiliates wouldn't tolerate it. They would, and they have power in that deal, and so they won't tolerate it. Shep Smith is palatable, and that has always been a strategy on the part of Ailes, right? And so that's why Shep Smith gets his own weird studio and all this other stuff because he's had a special perch. So the business strategy really boils down to that there are very few people at the network that have actual leverage and power, but Shep Smith is one of them. Unless Fox News can figure out a way to get another personality on staff that could actually have broad national appeal when it comes to satisfying their obligations to their affiliates, they kind of have to take whatever Shep Smith serves them to a large extent because he has leverage. And that audience is different than the Fox News captivated audience, but it is directly connected to their obligations. So that's really what it boils down to.
But it seems to me they could do that, and if they were, it seems to me they could do that and still have Shep Smith kind of toe the line or not. So I'm looking at a headline right now from yesterday. Shepard Smith, Fox News can confirm we have no evidence of any spies in the Trump campaign. That's what he said on the record on yesterday. Brittany, bring me up just for one quick second here, if you don't mind. This
Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, Republican, but President Trump insists that Mueller's team is politically biased. A bunch of Democrats. Today he tweeted, "When and where will all of the many conflicts of interest be listed by the 13 angry Democrats plus working on the witch hunt hoax? There has never been a group of people on a case so biased or so conflicted." That's just flat untrue. It's all a Democratic excuse for losing the election. Where is the server? Bob Bianchi is here, former prosecutor and current defense attorney. This is part of an open and transparent campaign by the president and those around him to discredit the institutions of the nation, to make people disbelieve the media and distrust the law enforcement officers and officers of the court who are investigating him, in an attempt to make the people, at least some of them, not believe the institutions of our nation when later they find out whatever they find out. It is open, transparent, explained to us by none other than the president's attorney. It continues to this day, and it is involved in it is this particular issue. There were no spies in Trump's campaign of this. Fox News can confirm we have no evidence of any spies. It's talk.
All right, so what we just heard from Shepard Smith, that was very, very dramatic, by the way. What he's literally a voice in the wilderness. But what you explained to us, Angelo, is what we just heard. And it's important for us to all understand, folks. Is Shep Smith talking to local hard news, regular news affiliates, not the Ingram, Hannity, Carlson, O'Reilly audience, correct?
That's right. I mean,
Okay.
that's what he does. He wants to maintain his brand. And the reason Fox News lets him get away with it to an extent is because if they were to, say, take away his Fox News show and only let him do those breaking news moments, he would walk. I mean, and so he wants that show. And so that's his leverage point. And one thing that he's always done, and this is something that I've always noticed, and whenever there's a major controversy or things are out of step, he's always been very careful about this. He insists on speaking for the journalists or alternatively the news side of Fox News. So when he used to lead into Bill O'Reilly's show, when Bill O'Reilly was on these tears, he would always close out his show saying, okay, from the news side of Fox News, signing off, I mean, he would always make a hard separation between what he was doing and what other people were doing. And it's, if you saw that there too when he was speaking, he wasn't saying I can confirm. He wasn't saying that.
He said Fox News, right?
That's right. And it's intentional and by design because he wants to make it clear that what they're doing is basically just spouting off, and what he's doing is actually connected to the news programming side. And he, like I said, he's just one of the few people there that actually has just a bit of leverage. And they get blowback for it. Fox has been pretty open about the fact that they get an incredible amount of complaints about Shepard Smith from their own audience. I mean, they repeatedly have calls for him to be fired by their own people. It's just he has leverage, and that's what it boils down to.
This is MIP Breaking News.
The Associated Press is reporting that Donald Trump is considering pardoning Muhammad Ali. Angelo, you can be the first in the nation to react to this story. Lord have mercy.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he does it. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it feels to me like it's a strategy to use the pardon power to score some communications, wins. And it's hard. I'm of multiple minds of this because I don't. On the one hand, I don't think people should be fooled by it or duped by it. But on the other hand, I think to the extent that some of these things have good outcomes, I don't know if that certainly doesn't take away from all the bad that he does. And I'm not one of those people like, well, you should give him some credit. But what I can say is a good thing is a good thing, and acknowledge the thing, but not, his motivations probably suck. I think that's the thing that I boil it down to. I think they're crass and disconnected from actual justice because most of what he does actually hurts people. So I don't think the motivation here is to balance the scales of justice. But on the other hand, good is good. And it does feel to me like these things are going to continue to play out as part of a larger strategy to use the pardon power. So that's my first take.
But now here's my thing though, and I think that's accurate. I agree with you, but here's the little problem though. Let me pretend like I'm Shep Smith for a minute. Let's do some news. Pardon him from what? Didn't the Supreme Court already exonerate Muhammad Ali?
But that's what I was going to be my next question. Is that even necessary?
And it might have been either unanimous or 7-2, which frankly, Angelo, if I got a choice between being exonerated by a 7-2 or 9-0 Supreme Court versus Trump, I think I'm going to take the 7-2, 9-0 Supreme Court exoneration. That's just me. So y'all, anybody can call and explain to Angelo and me what it is to pardon him for. Please, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just ignorant. Maybe there's something else out there on Muhammad Ali that didn't happen. Because even the Olympic Committee gave him back his medal.
Right.
So I'm a little confused.
What harm is he curing here?
Yeah, I don't. Y'all. We're not gonna make it, Angelo. That's all I'm getting. I shouldn't say that though. I say that to my friends. Say, Mark, stop saying that. We're not gonna make it. But what is he pardoning him? Oh my God. Okay. But I agree. It's the pardon. But you see, Angelo and I are doing what the full-time journalists and media need to do. and that is ask probing and investigative questions about this. That's what we got to do. 'Cause why is he pardoning Muhammad Ali when there's nothing to pardon Muhammad Ali for? So we will see about that. Lastly, just in terms of probity by the media, we talked about this in the first hour, Angelo. I want to get your reaction to some of the renewed conversation around Bill Clinton, Craig Melvin asking him about, what he did or didn't do in the context of the Me Too movement. It seems to me there's a bit of a double standard because I've not heard a journalist even have an opportunity to ask Trump anything within the context of the Me Too movement. Have you? I mean, he hadn't held a press conference. He doesn't sit down with anybody unless it's a Fox journalist.
None at all. I mean, they're not, and I don't know if they, and I really don't think that, and this is just my assessment of the, I don't think if they actually got an opportunity to sit down with him right now that they would ask him about it. I think there may be a rare instance, but I think that would be an outlier. Actually, I think that they would really make a calculus that it's a dead end. They're not going to get anything but negativity from it. They're not going to actually give them an answer for it. And I don't think that that's the thing that they would press him on. So at least in this moment, now over time, if he starts doing more interviews, maybe that's where they would go. But I would be surprised. I think they would ask about Mueller. I think they'd ask about Hannity. I think they'd ask about Giuliani, because I think their perception is pretty short term. They may ask a little bit about Stormy Daniels and sort of the latest narrative of there, but I don't know if they would go one layer deeper and about his broader misogyny. On the Bill Clinton stuff, I mean, to an extent, I think he's out there talking about it on purpose. I think he knows that he's going to be doing these interviews. And I think he has to come to terms with his own history, and that's part of what you're seeing play out here.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that it does illustrate a deeper, very likely double standard on the part of the way the media would play out.
Yeah, and I think if I could have given Bill any advice, he didn't give a good answer in the Melvin interview. I think I know what he was trying to say. He just did it inarticulately, and that is, he was impeached, and he should say, frankly, Trump. There are no consequences for him, and Bill obviously still needs to do a lot of atonement, but to have been impeached, what he said was, I didn't get out free. I had $16 million in debt. Okay, but it didn't come across the right way. That's true. He had to pay all the legal bills and all the money, but only two presidents have been impeached in history. One of them was Bill Clinton. And, that's that's part of the price he paid. Maybe the other price is to pay. But Trump's not paying any price, and there's no indication that he ever will up to this point.
Yep.
So,
right.
All right, folks. Angelo Carusone, Angelo is I'm going to give him a journalistic assignment today. He's going to get back to us later today and tell us what Muhammad Ali needs to be pardoned for.
First thing I'm doing as soon as I hang up.
Right, because we're a little lost on that one. MediaMatters.org, Yes, I say it, but I'm saying it because I want you to go read for yourself. I'm not saying stuff just to be repeating to do sort of a Manchurian Candidate to you. Like if you don't believe me, just look at Hannity for a few minutes. You're not gonna be able to look at it much longer. But they the same thing. They say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Thank you, Angelo. Have a good day, buddy. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Angelo Carusone with MediaMatters.org. Folks, don't go away. We'll be right back. Sirius XM Progress 127 Resistance Radio. Get ready for impeachment. This is MIP.